evening. I'm Regina Lay.
And I'm Riza Diaz.
The big stories tonight. Facing the House Appropriations Committee for the first time as Public Works Secretary, Dizon asks for more time to scrutinize and overhaul his agency's proposed budget for 2026.
For a second day, protesters descend on the St. Jared construction in Pasig in a bid to hold Sara and Curly Discaya to account over the flood control scandal.
And a Batangas district engineer has vehemently denied charges he was trying to bribe Congressman Leandro Leviste.
Ako po ay na-overwhelm sa laki at sa gulo na nadatnan ko. Hindi po ito magiging madaling proseso at hindi din po ito magiging mabilis na proseso.
Ano pang butas yung meron sa proseso?
Itong sistemang ito na naka-in place sa kasalukuyan, may nakakalusot. Very confusing po itong proseso ng procurement dito sa DPWH.
There you have it. DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon, House Appropriations Committee Chair Mika Swansing has approved Congressman Laila De Lima's motion to defer the deliberation for the budget of the DPWH, and Swansing ordered the agency to submit its revised budget not later than September 12.
This was after DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon personally appealed to the committee to give him at least 1 week to conduct a sweeping review of the proposed budget that's been marred with red flags. Daniel Pawid with tonight's big story.
Aaminin ko po, sa tinagal-tagal ko po sa gobyerno, ako po ay na-overwhelm sa laki at sa gulo na nadatnan ko at nakikita ko sa loob ng Departamento ng Public Works and Highways. Hindi po ito magiging madaling proseso at hindi din po ito magiging mabilis na proseso. This will take time and this will be a very, very difficult process. Hindi po muna ako magpe-present at hihingi po sana ako ng panahon. Kung kinakailangan po, hindi na po kami matutulog para lang po maayos ito at mabago kasi po napaka-importante.
On day 5 of his term as the new Public Works Secretary, Vince Dizon already had to face the House Committee on Appropriations to answer questions over his agency's 2026 proposed budget. But he couldn't answer many of the questions since it wasn't him who prepared the proposal. So Dizon asked for 1 week to go over and study the more than 880 billion peso proposed budget prepared by his predecessor Manny Bonoan. Specifically, Dizon said he wanted to see for himself the red flags that both House and the Senate have flagged.
Yung pong mga proyektong completed na pinopondohan pa rin. Yung pong mga double entry na isang proyekto pero dalawang entry at therefore dalawang budget. Yan po ay kailangan po hindi lamang malaman ng ating mga kababayan, pero kailangan po nating ayusin at kailangan po nating tanggalin.
Dizon's DPWH also wanted to review all flood control project allocations in the next year's National Expenditure Program. Minority Leader Marcelino Libanan pointed out that more than 30% of DPWH funding for 2026 is in flood control. But to some congressmen, the distribution reeks of politics.
Hindi naman yan pera ng DPWH eh. Pera ng taong bayan. Ang dami po mga kalsada na sementado na, ginigiba. Tumawa kayo kasi I'm sure you agree with that. Ginigiba, tapos sinisemento uli. Samantalang tuwing nakikita namin yung kami sa probinsya namin.
Tama po yun. Natawa po talaga ako doon dahil tayo naman po bumabiyahe all over at nakikita din po natin yun gagi-gagi. No? At makakaasa po kayo na yun ang gagawin natin. In fact po, ang Pangulo po natin ay nakipagpulong nung nakaraang ilang araw sa League of Provinces. At yung mga governors din po natin, yun po ang hiniling. Na dapat naman po ang governors, ang probinsya, ang LGU ay dapat involved dito sa mga proyektong to. Unfortunately po, mukhang tinanggal po nitong mga nakaraang taon ang involvement. At yun po ang inutos po sa akin, specifically ng Pangulo, kailangan po ibalik ang local participation dito sa mga proyekto natin. Para tama ho kayo kung ano po ang kailangan ng probinsya, ng syudad, municipality.
Deputy Minority Leader Leila De Lima commented on another issue, funding allocated for roads that never change throughout the years.
Bakit po bilyon-bilyon ang allotment ng DPWH sa maintenance ng mga halos pare-parehong daan in the past few years? Second District Engineering Office, Metro Manila, mula 2023, milyon-milyon ang budget ng preventive maintenance nito.
I've been informed that since a couple of years ago, I think since 2022 or 2023, medyo nababawasan po talaga ng malaki daw po ang maintenance fund ng DPWH, no? And it has been quite insufficient to adequately maintain, no? That's what I'm hearing. However, I think again, it's the same situation, Madam Chair, na wala po talagang prioritization talaga.
Meantime, Kabataan Party List Representative Rene Co asked Dizon how the system of kickbacks in DPWH projects work.
Paano po ba nangyayari yung kickbacks for the boys, SOP, aside from yung mga na-identify kong mga butas? Ano pang butas yung meron sa proseso as we speak?
Clearly, obvious naman na nakakalusot eh. Nakita na natin eh. Di ba? Nakakalusot eh. So itong sistemang ito na naka-in place sa kasalukuyan, whether 9184 yan or ngayon may bago tayo, yung 12009, may nakakalusot. No? Yun din po, kung ano yung tanong nyo, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair, yun din po ang tanong ko. At kailangan po talaga nating malaman kung ano ang mga loophole at ano ang pwedeng pang-plug doon sa loophole na yon. No? Hindi ko po masasagot yan ngayon, ma'am, to be quite honest. No? Kasi very confusing po itong proseso ng procurement dito sa DPWH.
Dizon said that all officials in the agency have tendered their courtesy resignations. 3 are fired. First one to go is Bulacan's former district engineer Henry Alcantara, who's also been slapped with 4 administrative charges: disloyalty to the country and to the people, grave misconduct, gross neglect in the performance of duty, and conduct prejudicial to the best interests of the service. While the budget hearing was going on, progressive groups rallied in front of Batasang Pambansa, condemning corruption in the Public Works Department and calling for accountability from the contractors and government officials who colluded and profited from the problematic flood control projects. Some even threw mud, just like what the protesters did at the St. Gerard construction compound in Pasig yesterday. Rainiel Pawid, We Are One News.
Senate Finance Committee Chair Senator Win Gatchalian is seriously considering recommending diverting DPWH's entire flood control budget for 2026 to the DepEd, or Department of Education. That is, if Secretary Dizon will fail to purge it of all questionable and duplicate line items. The said budget amounts to about 270 billion pesos. And Gatchalian said he's already talked to Education Secretary Sani Angara about this. But Gatchalian at the same time is also worried since DepEd likewise has a track record of not finishing many of its projects.
Sa DepEd is yung absorptive capacity. Dahil medyo notorious ang DepEd na hindi nila magastos yung pera dahil sa dami nilang ginagawa. So, nag-usap kami ni Secretary Angara at meron ng mga bagong reforma gagawin para bumilis yung pagpapatayo ng classrooms. For example, pwede nang i-download sa LGU or pwede nang gamitin yung mga credible na NGOs, pwede na rin mag-PPP. Ngayon kasi isang modality lang, ibibigay mo sa DPWH at DPWH magpapatayo. Importante rin na makikipag-coordinate kami sa DepEd kung kaya nila ubusin yung pondong ibibigay sa pagpapatayo ng classroom.
Earlier on our sister program, StoryCon, former DPWH Secretary Rogelio Babes Singson said he was also very frustrated at the mangling of the DPWH budget. He said the person most liable for this, or the linchpin, is the one who prepared the budget. Singson also says it's not true DPWH could have bypassed local and district officials in deciding which projects will get funded.
Ang proseso kasi dyan, before any project is put in the NEP, yung mga district engineers discuss with the local officials kung ano yung importanteng project sa kanila.
Sinong linchpin ngayon? Sino yung fulcrum? Sino yung tumatahi sa lahat ng ito? Sino yung head ng sindikato?
Yung naghahanda ng budget, yung Napoles, may middleman pa, makikisosyo pa yon. Tayo-tayo na lang.
Meanwhile, protesters continued to hound the Discaya's St. Gerard construction office for a second day. This time, it was Akbayan youth which staged a picket and called for accountability over the anomalous flood projects or flood control projects.
Kapag tayo ay minumulto ng mga ghost projects, di ba? Ano daw yung tunog ng ghost project?
Some rallies wore ghost costumes with photos of the Discaya couple Sarah and Curly and other contractors implicated in the controversy. Today's protest was more peaceful compared to yesterday's, where rallies vandalized the gate and walls of the Discaya compound. Pasig City Police were present to secure the area, and the protesters today actually had a permit from authorities.
Kay Discaya na po nang galing. Tinanong siya, ikaw ba ang nagmamay-ari ng 9 na kumpanya na ito? Sabi niya, yes. Ito bang 9 na kumpanya na ito ay naglalaban-laban sa isang bidding? Sabi niya, yes. Ilan ang sasakyan ninyo? 29 luxurious cars. Hindi ba yun pangungurap sa pondo ng taong bayan?
Meanwhile, the Bureau of Customs continued its investigation on the Discaya's luxury vehicles. The BOC is assessing if the vehicles were legally imported and if corresponding duties were paid. Their lawyer, Attorney Cornelio Samaniego III, maintained that all 28 luxury vehicles surrendered to the BOC are registered.
Hindi po marirehistro yung mga sasakyan na yan kung may kulang sa dokumento or kulang sa taxes. Now, kung may pagkukulang po sa taxes po, ang sabi po sa akin ni Sir Curly, willing po silang bayaran kung ano man yung pagkukulang sa taxes.
Samaniego also responded to the alleged unfinished works at the Philippine Film Heritage Building in Intramuros. Great Pacific Builders and General Contractor, another firm of the Discayas, were tapped for the project. Samaniego explained that the contract was divided into 2 phases. The first was completed in December 2024, and the unfinished part is being done by a different contractor. Samaniego, however, admitted that Phase 2 may be delayed after the Discaya's PCAB license was revoked.
Yung Phase 2 po, ongoing pa po yung Phase 2. Oo. Ang problema po natin ngayon, alam nyo naman po na unilaterally canceled ang pick-up licenses ng siyam na korporasyon. So, ang dilemma po natin ngayon, hindi natin alam kung yung natitirang trabaho nila ay matatapos po nila with the cancellation. So, kinausap po ako ni Sir Carly kagabi in person, no? Ano po ang gagawin doon? So, sabi ko na lang, kaharap ng mga engineer, sabi ko makipag-coordinate kay Secretary Vince Dizon, kasi ang implementing agency po yata doon ay DPWH.
Batangas DPWH District Engineer Abelardo Calalo has filed a counter-affidavit denying he tried to bribe Batangas Congressman Leonardo Leviste. Calalo said, quote, "I vehemently deny the accusations against me. The same are either contrived or founded on a twisting of the truth and clearly as part of a political agenda." Calalo went on to say, "I only bought or brought the donations of the contractor solely upon the instructions of Uswag Ilonggo Party List Congressman Jojo Ang." He was referring to the money confiscated from him by the police. Calalo also said this is a case of instigation and not entrapment. Instigation means luring the accused into a crime that he otherwise had no intention to commit in order to prosecute him.
All right, let's try to get his reaction now to this counter affidavit filed by Batangas 1st District Engineer Abelardo Calalo. Joining us is Batangas 1st District Congressman Leandro Levisa. Good evening, Congressman. Thanks for being with us again.
Hello, good evening.
Hi. So first off, I'll give you a chance to respond to the item we just read about Engineer Calalo vehemently denying that he tried to bribe you.
First, he admitted that he collected the money from contractors and just said that it was a donation for my projects. I think that your viewers can judge for themselves what it means when a contractor wants to make a donation to a congressman. And he failed to mention that the cash included a receipt of 3 projects from one contractor. I also posted that on our Facebook page, so you may also see that receipt for yourself. He also failed to mention that there were other contractors, he told me, were willing to give donations, and that the total amount, at least in his affidavit, was already also cited as up to 360 million pesos from the total 3.6 billion pesos DPWH First District Batangas budget. I think that the fact that he has admitted that there is money already kind of puts him in a stitches, having to put all this together while at the same time saying that it was not an attempt to somehow make this in consideration of the projects being given by the contractors.
Congressman, my apologies for mispronouncing your name earlier, Congressman Leandro Leviste. In the said affidavit, hindi po niya na-mention yung ibang contractors. Is that correct? He failed to.
He didn't even mention the contractor that the 3.1 million pesos came from. And the sheet already shows that it came from a contractor with 3 projects in my district. I put the data on our Facebook page. It's Top Tech Trading that has a office, I believe, in Lemery, Batangas.
When we first spoke to you about this issue a couple of weeks ago, I had the impression that that was the first time, the day that you caught him, or the day that you had that confrontation with him was the first time you met him. But I read his whole affidavit, and I just want to run through his arguments one by one. Is it true that you had met with him a couple of times, or multiple times already before that? Once including together with your mother, Senator Loren Legarda, and that was in May, shortly after the elections, and your mother even asked him to take care of the projects in her district, the first district.
Yes, I actually, in my interviews on this matter, refer to the regular meetings that I have with Engineer Calalo, because that's part of what congressmen do with the district engineers, planning the future projects and also overseeing the existing projects implementations. The thing that I have been working on in the last month has been auditing the supposed substandard projects in the first district, and the pictures that we put on our Facebook page include engineerings of the DPWH office of Engineer Calalo. The first time I actually met him was in December of 2024 with my mom, when we were donating the repair of 2 damaged bridges in Puting Kahoy and Binambang in my district. I was not yet congressman then, and I donated the repair of these 2 bridges at my expense and met Engineer Calalo to get approval for the donation and implementation, considering these are DPWH bridges. So he mentions that meeting in his affidavit. After the election, we also met him to first have a kind of courtesy, because he actually has to present to us the ongoing and future projects. And I can say this definitively, in these meetings, we have never asked for anything in regards to the ongoing projects. We have no interest personally in any of the ongoing projects. And I don't think he himself would even allege that. And I think that anyone would not be able to say that either. So we're openly discussing these matters, including our not accepting any kickbacks from DPWH projects, because I don't think there's anyone who will say that there is anyone who has ever given us anything for any DPWH projects.
So the timeline seems to align. He does say that you first met in December 2024, as you said, at the Matabangkay Beach Club, and he was invited there by the staff of your mother, Senator Loren Legarda. Now, his second argument is that the money that he brought to you, the donations, were, he was just following the orders of Congressman Jojo Ang, who had given him explicit instructions to collect the donations from the contractors and bring them to you as a show of support for the projects and programs and nothing more. There was no quid pro quo there.
Yes, first of all, he never once mentioned that name to me in my meeting with him. And he said that the suporta is pinapadala ng mga contractors. He'd say that someone else told him to get that suporta to give to. That's why I'm wondering why he doesn't mention the contractors. And yet he's bringing in some totally different person into this conversation. The other thing is that that person doesn't even have any projects in the first district of Batangas. So I'm just pointing out that there is a conspicuous omission of the contractors that actually do have projects in the first district who gave this money, who he told me are willing to give money. And I can name some of them now, but I think that it would actually be useful if Engineer Calalo in his next statements can also name the contractors who he spoke to, and that the media can also look at the list of who are the contractors of the projects in the first district of Batangas.
That money, the 3.1 million, that's what you're referring to. The contractors donated that money, or yung subsequent promise.
So the 3.1 million was from, it was in a bag with a receipt of 3 projects of Top Tech Trading and Construction Corporation, which, if you trace the corporate papers, is owned by a certain El Rey Jose Sinoche from Lemery, Batangas. There's another contractor who I have said publicly and also in my affidavit that was willing to give 15 million pesos cash. And there are other contractors that he spoke to, including, by the way, one contractor that is connected to a sitting member of Congress who is from Batangas, who he also did not mention in his affidavit, but whom I have discussed with Engineer Calalo several times, is involved in projects that we are looking into in the district. So I'm only pointing these things out to raise questions on what seems to be deliberate omissions from Engineer Calalo's affidavit.
The overall tone of his counter affidavit tries to make it seem like you set him up, that this was not an entrapment, but more so that you instigated this confrontation, right? That he didn't. The day he went to your office, for instance, he set up an appointment. It's not the first time you were meeting. And then also he says that you were pressuring him to reveal the contractors that were awarded projects during the time of your predecessor, Congressman Eric Buhain. So he says you pressured him multiple times to reveal the names of these contractors. And reading between the lines, the message that I'm getting is that you were trying to extract some political mileage out of this in trying to pin all the blame on your predecessor. Could I have your reaction, please?
And he admitted the connection of my predecessor to these contractors. And that's why I'm pointing out that he's deliberately omitting the names of these contractors. And that the conversations that we had were in regards to trying to fix the projects in the first district and the district engineering office, where he admitted to me that there are not genuine biddings being done. And that's why I think that it's going to be helpful if he actually brings out more information that he has already told me in the past about the first district of Batangas engineering office.
Congressman, what's your reaction in him saying that this is clearly, it's part of his affidavit, a part of a political agenda?
Yeah, so you can speculate on the motives, but I think the simple facts speak for themselves, that there was money that was given with a receipt from a contractor, and the connection of the contractor to my predecessor could probably also be researched by even the media. So if getting accountability for certain projects in my district and allegations of there being collusion between bidders and a former congressman is perceived to be political, then so be it. But I think that that's also just doing my job.
And then just very quickly, Congressman, we've run out of time, but do we not, what weight does the fact that he's only been in position a little over a year, how much weight do we give that? It sounded like he's saying that he's very new to this, he doesn't know much about the kalakalan.
Yes, that's a very good point, because in just 1 year, he already has all of these dealings with the contractors who have links to politicians in the district. And many of these projects that we're now investigating as substandard were awarded and implemented at the time of the previous DPWH district engineer, who has since been promoted to a different region. So it's something that would be good for the media to look into, whether it is only in the first district of Batangas or if there are other district engineering offices where there are these issues. I don't want to meddle in the affairs of other districts when I'm focused on serving my own district, but that I think one more thing to point out is that Engineer Calalo's lawyer seems to also be the same lawyer as the lawyer of the Bulacan 1st District Engineering Office's personnel. So perhaps there's also some attempt by these people to somehow use the same lawyer.
Okay, we'll leave that there for now. We'll check back with you later on as this case progresses. Thank you so much for your time, Batangas 1st District Congressman Leandro Lubiste.
We're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, Justice Secretary Boying Remulla explains why Congressman Zaldi Co is not on immigration lookout order despite his alleged links to flood control projects. The big story. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back to the big story. A lawmaker has complained to the Justice Department for being included in the Immigration Lookout Bulletin Order, or ILBO, in relation to the flood control scandal. 43 individuals were put on this bulletin upon the request of the Senate Blue Ribbon Committee and DPWH Secretary Vince Dizon. They're mostly made up of the contractors, including the now infamous Discaya couple and Mark Allen Arevalo of Wawaw Builders. There were also some 15 DPWH officials, including former district engineer Henry Alcantara. And then there was Congressman Ferdinand Beltran of Ang Magbubukid party list.
We have a feedback na may nagrereklamo sa House that one of those issued ng ILBO is a congressman. Certain Mr. Beltran. I don't know him. Hindi ko siya kilala. I think he's a party list representative. Sabi kasi, it's ministerial for us to issue the order. Hindi kami pwedeng i-exempt namin yung isa dahil may posisyon. Hindi po ganun yung trabaho namin dito. We have to call a spade a spade. Kung yan ang listahan, yan ang ilalabas namin. Diba? It's fair.
We now also know that former Appropriations Chair Congressman Zaldi Co is in the U.S. for medical treatment. That is according to House spokesperson Princess Abante. His fellow Ako Bicol party list lawmaker, Congressman Alfredo Garbin Jr., has also said that Co dropped his child off at Boston University, then went on to do extensive checkups because he had issues with his blood pressure. Justice Secretary Remulla says there is currently no request to put Co on immigration lookout, and he himself also can't just order it.
We haven't put in yet on any ILBO. Kasi it will take a few requests for us to be able to handle those things. Nagkakaroon ng complications kasi ang dami kasing there are so many moving pieces in government. Kaya the last conversation is only good up to that point. We don't know kasi ngayon may reports na about the ghost projects, may reports na about the different projects, and some of them are changing their minds probably. Or some of them have become more intent.
Well, speaking of Congressman Alfredo Garbin Jr., we now have him on Zoom. Good evening, Congressman Garbin. Thanks for joining us.
Maybe.
Hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Congressman, let's first talk about your fellow party list, mate, si Congressman Zaldi Co. You gave a press conference in which you said he went to the U.S. to drop off his child at Boston University, and also he did extensive medical checkups upon the advice of his doctor. What else can you tell us about that trip, and when will he be back?
Well, yesterday he informed me that he has this very low blood pressure, 90/60, and he was advised by his doctor in the U.S. to undergo a medical checkup.
BCDO and external convergence projects.
Congressman?
Hello?
Yes, Congressman, I apologize for that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
So, as I've said earlier, Kong Saldi is in the U.S. right now, first to attend to her daughter. His daughter is in Boston University, and also he will undergo extensive medical checkup because of his heart ailment. By the way, umalis siya sa Pilipinas, wala pang SONA, no? And di pa nag-umpisa itong mga investigation na ito. And then to say that he is hiding or, abscond from any accountability or transparency in relation to the ongoing investigation. Walang katotohanan yan. It's just that he's in the U.S. right now.
We know that as well for a fact because he hasn't shown up to any of the plenary sessions at the lower house. And as per Rappler's research work, he's been absent without notice 3 times, excused 7 times, officially notified the House about absence twice, and attendance not available once. So he hasn't turned up to any of the sessions. How many, could you let us know what the House rules are in terms of absences? How many times one person can be absent?
I am not particular about the absences that a House member can, accumulate. But as to whether the absence was valid or not, then it is up to the appreciation of the Secretariat. Those medical reasons filed by Congressman Saldico, I think, is justifiable for him to undergo the said medical checkup, considering that he has been experiencing this heart ailment since last year, November of last year. And that's why he signed as chair of the Committee on Appropriation January. February of this year, he went to Singapore to seek expert medical assistance and checkups to the best hospital in Singapore. And right now, he is in the United States to, have this medical consultation in other hospitals.
And Congressman, ito pong mga checkups na to cannot be done here in our country.
Pwede naman siguro, but mas komportable siya doon sa, alam mo naman, pag Amerika or Singapore, nandun yung mga eksperto. At mas, kumbaga, when it comes to medical science and advancement, admitido naman natin na mas advanced sila.
And when will he be back? Do we know?
That I still have to ask him. We don't have any definite date when he's going back. Tatanungin ko po.
How often do you get to talk to Congressman Ko?
Just before this interview, I talked to him and kinukumusta ko kung kumusta na siya.
So, kumusta na siya, Kong?
Okay naman po siya. Umiiwas sa mga balita dahil mas lalo na naapektuhan yung kanyang pahinga at yung kanyang health. So, minsan nga, hinahayaan ko na lang na siya yung tumawag instead na ako yung tumawag. Kasi minsan, hindi naman sumasagot sa phone because he's trying to, avoid all those negative reports pertaining to his person.
Well, the reason he's all over the news right now is because of all the things that are coming out about the flood control scandal, the mess, right? And all the budget insertions. So, and again, we keep coming back to the fact that he was appropriations chair in the 19th Congress, and he obviously would have presided over the small committee in the House where allegedly a lot of these insertions and realignments happened. So if there was anyone, I don't think anyone's accusing him of wrongdoing yet, but if there's anyone who can answer all of these questions around the budget, it would be him, no? So how amenable do you think he'd be to answering, to clearing his name if need be?
You know, as we all know, that the General Appropriation Act is not just a work of Congress. It is an act of Congress which was signed into law. Meaning, General Appropriation Bill was approved in the House of Representatives, transmitted to the Senate, and then the Senate also conduct its own hearings, scrutinize the budget, insert their own initiatives in the budget, and the House and the Senate, convene together to harmonize the conflicting provisions of the General Appropriation Bill. And the committee report of the BICAM will be ratified by both houses of Congress. Ang gusto ko lang sabihin dito, hindi lang naman si Kong Saldi ang nakakaalam ng buong budget dahil ito ay trabaho ng lahat ng kapukunan ng Kongreso, the Senate and the House of Representatives. And that's why nagtataka ako kay Toby why he keeps on insisting that Kong Saldi should explain the same, especially on insertion. Remember that when the budget was approved and when the BICAM report was ratified by both houses of Congress, ang boto ni Kong Toby was both in the affirmative. Bumoto siya in the affirmative. So bakit siya patuloy na nagrereklamo? But speaking of insertion, siguro inadmit niya na kanina na totoo nga yung kanyang insertion na 525 million for the 2025 General Appropriation Act. And most of his insertion, Toby Chanko, nailagay doon sa flood control sa Nabotas. And ako naman nagtataka sa kanya because he's conspicuously silent on those takers, contractors being awarded by this flood control project sa kanyang distrito na kung saan nai-involve sa mga ghost project. Nandyan Sims Construction, which was already blacklisted by the DPWH. Nandyan din yung St. Timothy. I think St. Timothy is the biggest taker of his flood control projects in his district. Sobra sa kalahating bilyon ang pinanalo ng St. Timothy sa kanyang distrito. Kasama na rin yung mga Discaya related contractors, yung Alpha and Omega, nandyan yung Top Notch. So this four combined, halos 1 bilyon yung pinanalong flood control project sa distrito ni Toby Chanko. Kaya nagtataka ako kung bakit hindi niya inimbestigahan yung sarili niyang bakuran.
Actually, Kong, I was speaking to him yesterday as well, and I did ask him about the contractors, and he said he doesn't know them. He doesn't usually get involved in that. And he only recently spoke to the district engineer in Navotas to try to find out if any of the top 15 contractors that President Marcos outlined had projects in his area. And true enough, meron nga St. Timothy and Sims. So he said basically he doesn't know. But anyways, the larger point...
Siya na rin nagsabi na hindi makakapasok ang kontraktor pag hindi kakilala ng district congressman. Galing yan sa kanyang bibig. At nakapagtataka dahil naging paborito sa distrito niya ang St. Timothy at Alpha and Omega na kung saan ito ay nai-involve sa mga maanomalya at ghost projects. So siguro doon sana sa pagdinig ng TRICOM committee, he took advantage of the presence of those contractors and asked questions. Paano kayo nakapasok sa aking distrito? Tinulungan ko ba kayo? Bakit halos sa 1 bilyon ang inyong nalikom na kontrata sa aking distrito samantalang bilyon-bilyong flood control projects ang naibaba sa kanyang distrito? Until now, baha pa rin po ang Nabotas.
To be fair, every single one of the congressmen we've spoken to about this issue say they don't know paano napasok yung insertions under their district. I'll give you an example. Just recently, we spoke to Oriental Mindoro Congressman Arnan Panaligan, who was in fact identified in Senator Ping Lacson's privileged speech. And pati si Congressman Panaligan, he said, well, I don't know how all of these insertions were put under my district. And sabi din ng ibang congressman, it's entirely plausible that they have become the unwitting beneficiaries of the insertions. Kaya nga, we keep coming back to the minutes of the small
give it the
committee.
benefit of the doubt. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. But as you know, the 529 million, of which his insertion, his initiative, nilabi niya yun sa Kongreso at na-approve nga na isama sa 2025 budget. Naman sa pagkikipaglaban niya noon sa deliberation sa budget, baka sabihin niya rin na nakalimutan niya na pati yung bidding at pag-implement noon. In fact, there's one letter addressed to him, and this is all documented, informing him and asking his assistance for the implementation of a project being implemented, contracted out to St. Timothy. So ang sabi, kailangan namin ng tulong mo dito upang ito ay ma-facilitate at ma-implement. Naka-address po sa kanya yung sulat. Ang nagsulat sa kanya yung DPWH. So to say na wala siyang alam sa implementation is siguro naman kaduda-duda, no?
Okay, I apologize, Congressman. We've run out of time, but we'll pick this issue up with you another time. Thanks so much for talking to us tonight. Ako, Bicol Party List Representative Alfredo Garbin Jr.
Now, in other news, President Marcos on Wednesday signed a new law enabling foreign investors to lease land for nearly a century. RA 12252, which amends the 1993 Investors Lease Act, allows foreign investors to lease private land for 99 years. The previous law gives investors a maximum of 50 years, renewable only once every 25 years. They can only use the land for the approved investment project. The president can also shorten the lease period based on the recommendation of the Fiscal Incentives Review Board. The amended law is expected to drum up investments, according to economic czar Frederick Go. He said this will open the door to sustainable and long-term investors. The Philippines has continued to lag Southeast Asia in attracting FDI, drawing only $8.9 billion. Now, in comparison, Vietnam attracted over $20 billion last year, according to the World Investment Report.
Okay, and finally, let's get to our third guest for tonight. Let's talk about that the easing of those land leasing rules with the Management Association of the Philippines. We have with us again Governor Rex Drilon, who is also the governor in charge of MAPS, ECG, and Shared Prosperity Committee, as well as the vice chair of the Center for Excellence in Governance. Good evening, sir. Welcome back to The Big Story.
Good evening, and good evening, ladies, and thank you for having me again. Yes,
I mean, we had a good discussion yesterday, but the line was quite choppy, so we thought to invite you back again. But before we get to the flood control issues, if you could just comment quickly on the easing, the last item we read, the easing of the land leasing rules. Foreigners now allowed to lease for up to 99 years. What kind of an impact will that have?
Yeah. Good and very good impact, but also there are some risks. My understanding is that the original land lease terms is 50 plus 25 years. And by increasing it to 99 years, it's almost practically ownership, will definitely encourage more investors if they think it's worth investing in our country. But long-term leases are not the only reasons why people invest in the Philippines. There's this thing about infrastructure, governance practices, graft and corruption, but it's a good step towards increasing potential FDIs, which was a miserable 3 billion this year. No, that's one. So it will improve the investment climate. Second, it will also encourage more investments, particularly in tourism, manufacturing, because these are CAPEX-heavy projects. And with this longer lease, you can probably expect more hotels and resort facilities to to bring in the tourists that we need. And of course, if you have a 99-year leasehold rights, it is very bankable, and you can get more out of that asset in terms of collaterals and so on and so forth. And of course, this will lead to modernization of our industries and also increase employment. And with 99 years, we're aligned with the other jurisdictions in our region, Singapore, Malaysia, and other countries. So those are the benefits of the increase in the land lease from 50 plus 25 to 99 years. But there are risks involved because you can also encourage speculations. Therefore, land becomes idle because people are speculating. It might also affect the sustainability or sustainable development of some of our areas. And if there's poor supervision and oversight, that means people will have longer years, 50 to 99 years, to misuse these leasehold rights. And it could also, because of the possibility that more land will be required by these potential investors, that they could marginalize our indigenous people and our poor and the disadvantaged. And while it is true to encourage investments, it also does not address the fact that we have issues with infrastructure, malgovernance, graft, and corruption. And just increasing land lease will not automatically increase investments.
Okay.
That's my take on that, ladies.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned, Mr. Drilon, these issues. Let's go back to the conversation last night with MAP, of course, having this initiative. Let's circle in and zoom in on what actually the business sector can do with this issue that is haunting our government in terms of not giving it to a scale where we are going to dismay foreign investors.
Yeah. Well, as I said last night, the business sector, including many in the civil society sector, are really disgusted, outraged, and disappointed with the way our money, people's money, are being spent with massive corruption practices. So, in the strongest terms possible, MAP issued that statement that's supported by 30 business and civil society groups. So that was the start. And rather than just criticize the system, we also offered a few things to the powers that be that we can help in the private sector and the civil society sector. We can help identify those who have been guilty in the conspiracy to steal from our people. We will also participate in and support citizen and voter education campaigns to make people aware of the evils of corruption. And hopefully, by going through these education campaigns, we can convince the people to be more discriminating in the exercise of the right to vote, and not to vote into office people who are notoriously corrupt, and vote into office people who are good people, who are not tainted by graft and corruption. We can also help because of our network to gather evidences against these conspiracies. Whether it is in the Congress, in the DPWH, the LGUs, and even COA, because many of these things couldn't have happened if we had a vigilant commission and audit. So they're partly to blame. And
okay.
we operate in the business sector, we deal with other businesses, but we'll definitely blacklist these people who had been caught fooling around with the people's money. So, and a few other things that we have, you asked what business can do. We have offered our services to help the government and to help the country address this issue of corruption.
Sir, just very quickly, we're running out of time. Specifically on the independent commission that President Marcos is setting up, what can the private sector do to help there? Just very quickly, 1 minute.
Okay. The independent commission is very important if it's empowered enough to really bring people to jail. The independent commission, as the name suggests, should be people with probity, integrity, competence, and experience in dealing with these things. Because if you put other politicians, other people who are already, whose hands are not clean, they will not have a successful conclusion to this very serious issue that we're facing. So I think the independent commission is a very important step of government to go to the bottom of this. Except that reality tells us that many of those in power now are also friends or relatives of powerful people. So that independent commission has to have people who are not only have integrity, competent, probity, but also courage. We must have courage to call a spade a dirty shovel.
Kaya nga, sir, there's a lot of conflict of interest issues coming up, but we'll leave that there for now. And thank you so much for talking to us again today. That was Rex Drilon, Governor of the Management Association of the Philippines, which joined 29 other organizations in calling out the unabated corruption in government. And that is the big story this week. Thanks so much for watching.
We are One News, all sides, all the time.
We're back on Monday, 7:30, and have a great weekend, everyone.